Hello students, we are going to continue our topics from Unit 2. So if you turn to the page where it has solving equations for y, so we're writing the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line. Now we did one like this in our warm-up the other day when we did the open response, but just as another reminder, let's do one more. I want you to skip to number 5. That's what I'm going to do because it's a little bit different than the other ones. Not so much that you're doing a different process, it just looks a little weird when you divide. So I want to show you this one right now. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to get y by itself, just like we did before. So in order to get y by itself, we must do the opposite. So we're going to subtract x from both sides. And we're subtracting x because this is a positive x right here, and x minus x is 0, so that's going to take away that x. When it takes away the x, that helps us in the process of getting the y by itself. So when we take away x from the left side, it just takes away that x, so we're left with a negative 3y. When we take away the x from the right side, we can't combine these two because they're not like terms, so we just have a negative x plus 3. And we have a plus 3 because that's a positive 3 up there. If it was a negative 3, it would be minus 3. The next thing we want to do is divide by negative 3, and we want to divide everything by negative 3 because we got to keep it even. So once we divide by negative 3, we're going to have y equals, now remember in front of the x there is a 1, so we're dividing here, negative 1 divided by negative 3. Well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 1 over 3 does not simplify, so we're left with 1/3 x. And then we have a positive 3 divided by a negative 3, which gives us a negative 1. And now our equation is in slope-intercept form. So go ahead and do some more practice on that. So pause the video, take a few minutes to do that practice, and then come back to do the next page. Alright, now that you have done that one, let's go on to graphing. So again, this skill is also in your open response, but we'll go through one more again just to be sure you understand what you're doing. You're looking for this number by itself first. Alright, so the number by itself in this case is a negative 5. That is our y-intercept. So we're going to put a point at negative 5 on the y-axis. Sorry, didn't like points here. Alright, so we have a negative point on the negative 5 on the y-axis because that's our y-intercept. And then our slope is 1 over 3. And slope tells us our rise over our run. Now in this case it's a positive, so we want our line in this direction. This is a positive line. If it were a negative, then our line would go in the opposite direction because that's a negative line. So we're looking at the positive on this one. So if we go up 1 and over 3, and then we go up 1 and over 3 again, oops. Then we can also go down 1 and to the left 3. It keeps erasing this dot. Alright, and then once we have our points, we can connect our dots and make our straight line. And that is what y equals 1/3 x minus 5 looks like. Alright, so take a few minutes to do those practice problems now. Make sure your equations are slope-intercept form. If they're not, make sure you solve for y, just like we did on our last skill. And then remember, if it's a positive slope, our lines go this way, and if it's a negative slope, our lines go the opposite way. Alright, we have our last skill here. Our last skills are inequalities. So that's when we have our greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So let's do a couple reminders. A greater than or a greater than or equal to, we're shading above. A less than or a less than or equal to, we're shading below. And then if we have a greater than or a less than sign, that's a dashed line. And if we have a greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, that's a solid line. Alright, so just little reminders on those. So again, we're looking for that number by itself, which on this case it's a -1, so we're going to put a point at -1. And then our slope is rise 1, go over 2. So up 1 over 2. Ooh, up 1 over 2. This is not working. Let's see if I can try a different. Well, sorry. Alright, sorry about that. For some reason it won't let me make points on this graph without erasing my other ones. So anyway, I went up 1 and over 2, and down 1 and to the left 2. Whoops! Shouldn't have drawn my line yet. Alright, so since this is just a less than, we should have a dashed line here. So let's draw a dashed line. Alright, and then since it's less than, we're going to shade below the line. And that's everything below. Alright, let's see if we can do better on this one. So our y-intercept is a +3, so on the +3 we're going to put our point. And then our slope is rise 7, run 2, but it is a negative. So one of our moves has to be negative. Well, if I start at +3 and I try to go up 7, I can't go up 7. So we're going to go down 7. So that's my negative move. So now my 2 needs to be a positive move. So I'm going to go 2 to the right. Alright, this is greater than or equal to, so it's a solid line. I got rid of my point again. Alright, and then since it's greater than, y is greater than 3, well 4 is greater than 3, 5 is greater than 3, and 6 is greater than 3. So I'm going to shade above my graph. Alright, so go ahead and work through the rest of those. Do those practice problems. I'll keep these up as examples if you need them. Go ahead and pause the video. And once you are done with Unit 2.